What's up, guys? Welcome to a brand new episode of the Fit Women's Weekly Podcast. We're going to jump right onto this interview with Casey Westbrook. Casey is a personal trainer to adventurous women. If you're wondering, what does that mean? It means women into adventure sports, whether that is ultra trail running or mountain biking. She's your woman to go to help you train smart so that you can avoid injuries and do your best, of course, on race day when you want to be at max performance. So let's go ahead and jump on into this episode. One last thing, if you haven't already, make sure that you hit the like button and make sure that you're subscribed to the channel because every week I put out multiple videos talking workouts, exercise database breakdowns, and of course, more podcast episodes. So make sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss out. Now let's jump in to this episode with Casey. Are you specifically training for anything for yourself right now?
I am training. We're going to do that high rocks. I wouldn't say I'm
you're doing the high rocks too
specifically for it, but yeah, we're going to be on a team together, which will be fun, but not really. I'm just like in riding season right now. I have some lifting goals I'm trying to hit this year. Yeah. So, but mostly I just want to like ride as much as I can.
Well, we're already recording and I really want to pick your brain on that. I, for one, love the fact that you are like, you have niched down so specifically to being a trainer for adventurous women. I think that that is so cool. And I live in South Charleston, South Carolina. So basically a pancake. So there's not much when it comes to mountain biking, but hiking is our jam. And I take women on actual hiking retreats up in the Appalachians and stuff, which is just the coolest because my biggest thing with my own outlook is to live your fitness, right? It's like, it's great to get into the gym and to be strong, but if you don't get outside and actually live life in its fullest and do what's available to you, which is being out in nature, it's such a sad place to be.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Like, I totally agree. That's why we fitness. To like
exactly. So what's your story, Casey? How did you get into I've kind of looked a little bit through what you've posted, but were you an athlete growing up? How did you get into the world of like endurance and adventurous sports?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up running. I remember like it was at the age of 10, my dad took me on my first run just down our road, and I grew up running with him. Eventually did cross country and track. And in college, I found ultramarathon running. So I think it was like at the beginning of grad school, like the end of my undergrad, I decided to try out ultramarathon running. So signed up for one, trained and did it, and did that for a few years. So
it's
that's
very
kind of
addicting. Like, and I don't know why, because when you're in the middle of an ultra marathon, you're like, this sucks. Why am I doing this? I can't do this. It is so hard. And then you finish it and you go, I guess I should just go ahead and sign up for next year too.
Another one. I know it's so wild. You go through like I think about like you just go through like the biggest emotional waves of like the darkest parts of yourself. You get to like see into that part when you're struggling, and then these like big highs of like living in the most beautiful place ever and it's gorgeous. And so yeah, so brutal. And I definitely was addicted at the time.
I've always been interested when it comes to trail running, specifically for endurance trails, because I don't know how it is over there, but I'm assuming the population and the community is a lot the same. That when you are in the middle of an ultra marathon out on these beautiful trails and you start talking to the people around you, because obviously you're not running like the entire time, and you're sharing stories, I've learned that a lot of like addicts, like drug addicts, alcoholics, really find their way into endurance sports, specifically ultra marathons. Do you see that as well? And why do you think that is so common if you do?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, I think there's a huge like, people who want to get clean and they move and they need something to fill this like
that
it's like
addictive
the
personality.
void, that addictive personality. And then like I think there's a lot of soul searching that needs to be done when you're coming out of addiction because something's going on that has led you down that path. And I think spending that much time on your own out on the trails, like you can do that soul searching and like really understand and find parts of yourself and like just be okay with yourself, which like I think addiction sometimes for some people is just like a way to escape. And like ultra marathon running, it's like, yeah, I guess you're escaping, but you're also like fully, it's just
You
you.
are going through every single personality that you have inside your body through those hours.
Totally. Yeah. So I think that's part of it. And yeah, like if you need to spend 20 hours a week running to train, like you don't have time to take on like any addictions.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. So then once you got through, what made you decide to go from runner, ultra marathon to mountain biking?
Yeah, so I did my last ultra marathon in, I guess it was 9 years ago. And I actually got injured like kind of right before I did this last ultra marathon, but I was like 2 weeks away and I'd been training for it forever. So I went out and ran it anyway. And basically just like had this tendonitis knee issue for like a few years after where I couldn't really run and I couldn't really like figure out what was going on. So I wasn't running and I was like, oh, what do I do with my time? I found eventually mountain biking and I was like, this is just like trail running. It gives me the same like sense of flow. I get to explore and be out in nature. And this is like something that's a little more sustainable for me because it's less impact. And so it's like, let's try mountain biking and do this. So that's how that happened.
And were you able to also like, have you finally healed your body from the running?
Totally. Yeah. I ran my first half this last winter or spring. So I'm running. I can run again, but
Good.
it's not biking season, so it's hard to choose running for me right now. As much as I do like it, I really like mountain biking. So
Really? That's your like your passion, baby?
I am fully sold on mountain biking, and
I love it.
you'll see me doing that all the time.
I also saw like you had listed on your timeline that your last ultra marathon, and then you also talked about overcoming an eating disorder. Kind of
Yeah,
share a little bit about that and how it tied in with your athleticism and your being an athlete.
yeah. I think it's so interesting. It's just like one of those things that just kind of developed because we live in this world that we live in that kind of supports and normalizes disordered eating. It's the way my family ate. It's what I saw modeled by my parents growing up is like, you don't eat or try not to eat too much or always try to be like cutting calories instead of learning how to fuel yourself. So it's just how I grew up. And then eventually I went off to college and everyone scares you so much about the freshman 15. They're like, watch out. And I was like, that's not going to be me. So I became a vegan and then like started just exercising a ton, a ton, a ton.
Did you kind of
And
use veganism as an excuse to be able to like cut back or put boundaries on your food?
totally. And at
Yeah.
the time, I was like pretty hardcore sold on it was like this idea of animal rights and all of this stuff. And I later down the road looked at it and I was like, is this an eating disorder? And ultimately, it definitely like fed into that. Like when I go out with friends, like I can say no to food because I'm a vegan. So
Right.
it really just limited me in so many ways. Um, yeah, so I think it just like what I experienced, most people would say is like fairly, I think very common. Most women have or have had are having this experience of like, don't eat, limit your calorie intake. And as an athlete, this is going to have a really big impact on us because we need to fuel our bodies if we want to do what we want to do. And
Especially in
so,
the running community and
yeah,
in endurance training, marathon runner, you said you're cross country, you're kind of taught the smaller runner you are, the lighter you weigh, the faster your paces are going to be. So it's like this catch 22 of, well, I'm trying to be the best athlete, but at the same time, you're not giving yourself the fuel. So it's like, yeah, you might be lighter, but are you really running your best?
yeah, exactly. So that definitely played into it too. Like that's what we're modeled. And yeah,
That's funny. I actually never, I had an eating disorder in college as well and dealt with it for most of my 20s off and on. And I also was a vegan for a couple of years. And actually, just talking to you was kind of the first time when I went, oh, when I was healed during that period, I wasn't healed at all. I was just using that as another crutch to give another excuse or another layer to say, like, I'm healthy, I'm fine. I'm just doing this because it's quote unquote healthy.
totally. And I think, right. And I think that's super common with veganism and vegetarianism. And not to say that those styles of eating are bad, but it does, I think it's so important if you are choosing any sort of diet for whatever reason to just like
Don't
open
choose
up
a
the door.
restrictive diet, right?
Yeah. Like ask yourself this question and like be real with yourself, you know,
Absolutely. So how did
because
what was your aha moment of like, okay, no, this isn't healthy restriction. Something's got to
yeah.
change. And then for the ladies that have either gone through it like you and I have, or that are currently going through it, what were your steps to start getting out of that darkness?
Yeah, so I started learning about intuitive eating and I just started learning about it and I got curious, and I probably was like learning, listening to intuitive eating content for about a year. And I just asked myself, like, is this an eating disorder? And like, what would happen if I started eating more foods? What would happen? How would I think about myself? How would I think about my body? So probably my experience isn't conventional, but I don't think there is a really conventional way
Right.
to overcome an eating. But I just started like adding more foods into my diet, and then just really looking at like the root of it is really like body image and self-worth, and this idea that, hey, how can I start detaching my worth from how I look?
Mhm.
Because that was pretty much it. It was like, if I look good and I get these compliments on my body and my athletics, then I'm good, right? And how do I find like validation or like self-worth outside of that? So it's just a process of examining that and figuring out like where am I seeking validation here, and how can I like let that go?
Right. And I'm assuming too, being in the fitness space like we are, it's kind of like I want to make sure that I'm taken seriously. So I have to be as lean as possible because there's a lot of influencers and a lot of trainers out there that are having these bodies that are just not obtainable. But yet, for most women, we go like, well, if they can have that, I should have to look like that too. Right. So it's like taking off that pressure off of ourselves. Be like, it's okay to be a real woman and show what it's like to have a naturally fit body and not be sculpted 12 months out of the year.
Yeah, totally. Like, I think one of the big shock things that was brought to light during that time was like most influencers have some sort of eating disorder. And is that what you want? Is that the trade-off you're willing to make?
Right.
Is that healthy? And I think they're promoting this lifestyle of health, and most of us wouldn't consider that like a healthy lifestyle.
No, it's not a healthy lifestyle.
Like, it's just not. Yeah.
It's just a reminder, you guys, that just because somebody looks a certain way does not mean that they are healthy.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think in particular for women, really, and when we look at athletes, there's really only a very small period of time where they're at that like super low body fat percentage. And it's really, not that that is an indicator of performance, but it's just a culmination of their training where their body fat percentage is that low. And then the rest of the year, they need to come back to like a normal baseline so that they can train and rebuild and all of that.
Right, exactly. Which takes me to ask you the question of how did you then decide after going through your ultra running and then you're like, oh my God, mountain biking is the coolest thing. And then kind of going through this evolution of yourself and you're loving your body and you're fueling it. What made you decide to want to become a personal trainer and specifically start specializing in adventure sports? So it seems like right now you're really focusing on a lot of mountain biking for
Yeah.
athletes.
Yeah, it's mountain biking season, so we're talking
Yeah.
about it a lot. How did I get into this? I went to school for exercise physiology. So I initially was like, I'm going to be a physical therapist, which is like a very common reason people go into that line of work or into that field of study. And I found out that wasn't the right path for me, but I was really interested. Like, I love movement. I've always loved to move and move my body, and was like always really curious. So, I became a personal trainer and like started at the YMCA and started training. And during that time, I was a runner. So I was running, I was kind of doing strength training, but my own program was just kind of like chaos. And over the years, I started to get more consistent with my strength training, off the bike training, off the trail training, and then more consistent with like my on the trail training, my endurance work. And I ultimately figured out like, hey, just because I'm not like an elite level athlete, what I can still train like them and see the benefits that they're seeing, just like at my scale, and what I want to see in my own riding, in my own running at like a recreational level. So yeah, it was just like trial and error and trying a bunch of things. And I was like, oh, we can just like train like athletes and be better athletes and have,
Yeah.
Whatever it is, like, do you want to do a race or do you want to just have more fun out there? And that's how we got to here.
I love it. Now, like I mentioned, I am in like the flattest place ever. So mountain biking isn't really a thing here in Charleston.
Yeah.
We do. My husband and I go up to the mountains sometimes for like hiking and trail running and stuff. But I will be honest, I don't know a lot about my mountain biking because it's just not something that's an option for us here. It's an expensive sport that I understand, which is why it's not like, hey, let's just randomly, try it out on a trail around here if we don't get to do it very often.
Yeah.
But How is it? But I do have a lot of clients that are actually into mountain biking, which is why I was so excited to talk to you. What is it that a lot of mountain bikers get wrong when it comes to their own strength training? Because we talk about running all the time. Like it's so important for you to strength train. You need to make sure that you're strength training to keep your core tight. Your upper body is just as important than your lower body, fight injuries. But you don't hear a lot of sport specific training for mountain biking. So what is it that most people get wrong, and what would you recommend to someone that's just getting started?
Yeah, I think, for mountain biking, we think that just doing the sport is the way to progress. And like obviously you have to mountain bike to get better at mountain biking.
Right.
Um, but strength training is going to just like speed up the process, help prevent injuries, make you a more powerful rider, help like bring more balance into your sport. I think very similar to trail running, right? Like just running is good and important to get better at running, and you have to be strong if you want to like you're going to see a lot more progress, a lot less injury. One of the biggest things the other thing I see people get wrong is like they just do like all high intensity things. Like on the trail tend to be higher intensity just because the nature of trails having like features and things in the way, they require more intensity from us. So what we do is we go out and ride, and it's high intensity, it's hard, we're trying to keep up with like the dudes in the front, which is like good ambitious goal. And then we like go and we do like high intensity training, which could be like CrossFit or like HIIT training as our strength training. And so across the week we're just like up here all the time, just like working at high intensities. And then we get to like the end of the week and we're burned out and we're like too tired to do what we want to do over the weekend.
Right.
So the other thing I see is just like riding harder and doing everything hard being the fastest way to get somewhere, where in reality, having like kind of the full spectrum of intensities is going to be one of the biggest game changers for you in
I
progressing
love
in your
that.
sport and like feeling good.
Right. So basically, treat your training rides as intervals, because that's what you're doing. You're going like up and you're going down, your heart rate's going up and going down. And then use your other training days, however many options that might be, as more like accessory work or bodybuilding style of workouts so that your heart rate can recover, your heart can recover, but you're still working
Yeah.
those muscles.
Exactly. Yeah. So having interval and then like doing like zone 2 training, which, is like the lower intensity stuff, which opens our capacity for higher intensity. Like the more low intensity we have, we just have so much more to pull from and to recover from when we do harder efforts. Yeah. And then, right, exactly. Like doing like very traditional strength training. We lift heavy, we rest for 2 minutes, we do it again, and we
Yeah.
work like all of the muscle groups.
I love one thing that you had mentioned in one of your posts was talking about how biking doesn't increase your bone density. And I think that's so important, especially as women, we're starting to get a little bit older and we know things like running does, right? Because you're always pounding on your joints. That pounding puts a lot of pressure on your muscles and your bones to make them stronger, but you're not doing the same thing when you're on a machine like a bike. And I think that might be a surprise to some people. So what are some ways that you can still get the benefits and make sure that you are getting strong bones? Because I'm assuming it's inevitable when you're biking, right? In a mountain, you're going to fall off.
Falling happens. Yeah.
Falling happens and you don't want to break a wrist. I know that can happen because I've gotten in a biking accident and broke my wrist doing it. So how can you protect those bones?
Yeah. So the two like best ways to increase bone density are strength training and plyometrics. Like across the board, those are the best. Things like that come after that are like cutting and like running, like cutting side to side and running. So lifting heavy weights, like go lift something heavy at an RPE of like 7 or 8, where you're like, I could only do 2 or 3 more reps here at most. So if you are lifting a weight where you can do like 10 or 20 more reps, it's too light. Like if you're getting familiar, that's a great place to start. And eventually you need to lift heavier. And then jump around, jump in multiple planes, multiple directions, like jump with your arms, do plyometrics with your arms too.
What's some of your favorite plyo moves?
Yeah, I think some basic ones are things like squat jumps. And then you can what I like this one a lot for mountain biking, but like getting into like a lunge position and doing lunge jumps. I love plyometric push-ups. Like you can take any movement really and jump with it, and you have a plyometric movement. So just getting in the air and landing back on the ground.
And a lot of people are always nervous to do plyo because they're like, oh, it's going to put injury, I'm going to get injured. So what would you recommend to somebody who's kind of just brand new to all of it and they're actually scared to jump?
Yeah, I think I encounter this actually a lot because many of us go like 5, 10 years without jumping. And then one day we're like, oh my God, I haven't jumped since I was in elementary school.
Right?
So this is really common. The best thing I would say is start small. Do 3 jumps and they don't need to be high. Can you jump an inch off the ground? Um,
I
so
know with like
start
our clients, we even just sometimes have them just go to your tippy toes, just like bounce
small.
onto your toes.
Yeah. So things like that, just like get familiar with the motion. Start small and build from there. I would say injury doesn't come from any specific movement. It can happen like randomly, and oftentimes it comes from like doing too much too soon, too quickly.
Mhm.
So if you go out today and you haven't jumped in 10 years and you go and do 100 squat jumps, like you're probably not going to feel amazing after that. So start small.
Yeah. And the same thing with like cutting and speed work, which I freaking love cutting, doing agility work, doing sprint
Yeah,
stuff.
so fun. Yeah,
My
same thing.
husband
Like,
my husband and I actually on Sundays we try to go out and do timed 40-meter sprints. And the field that we were practicing on, yeah, because we were trying, and then we'll look up like the Columbine score. You're like, what can an NFL player do this at? We're nowhere near, but we're always amazed. We're like, wow, a 300-pound man can do this faster than me. But
oh,
we did a softball field this past weekend of like practicing sprinting from home to first. So fun. Just wanted to share with anybody listening, like such a fun way to add fun to your fitness. Like go out there and make it recess, you know?
make it fun.
Make it
100%.
fun. Yeah. When you first got into mountain biking, were there any surprises to you of whether it was harder than you thought or, oh my gosh, this worked? Like I thought I was going for a leg workout, but my arms are exhausted. What were kind of some of the surprises that you experienced at first?
I think my biggest surprise, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I think maybe it wasn't my biggest surprise is I went into the sport as an endurance athlete. So, my goal is like, oh, I just want to go far and climb and like go as far as I can. And what I didn't expect was I would love the skill component so much. I thought of myself as someone who doesn't like taking risks or doing scary stuff where I could get injured. And now I'm like, oh, I want to like learn how to jump and like do these scary like skinnies and like ride on logs and get air. So I think that was my biggest surprise in the sport is realizing like, oh, I actually do like the skill component and I want to grow in that way too.
That's really cool. I'm just curious, do you know, is mountain biking in the Olympics this year?
Yes,
Is it
it is.
really? Is
Yeah.
this the first year or has it been in before?
I think it's the first, I think it was supposed to be in 2020, and
2020,
then
yeah.
thing happened. I don't know if they like eventually did it. I don't remember what happened with that, but if that didn't happen, then yeah, this is the first year.
Oh, that's exciting. Okay, cool. I'll have to keep my eyes out.
Oh, yeah. So many cool athletes.
Everybody keeps telling me like, Kendall, you would love mountain biking. So seeing how like I can just see the passion like off of your face and how glowy you are talking about it. I'm like, okay, one of these days I'll find a friend that has an extra bike and I will try it. But what are your tips? Okay, so here's girl talk for real. One of the reasons I hate biking is because a seat hurts your coochie. Like
Yeah,
it is
it hurts.
uncomfortable, right? I'm like, I don't want my vagina to hurt for 3 days after. So, and I know that might sound silly, but is that like a real, like how can you be comfortable on a saddle for so long? What are your tips?
Okay, so my biggest tip is if your seat hurts, get a new seat. You need
Okay.
to get a new seat. This is, I think, I feel like I've been having this conversation a lot.
Okay, so
But
I'm
your
not the first person to be like, okay.
big reason people don't like biking. Seat technology has changed a ton, and I think it's also very important for our female health, for our pelvic floor, and just our pelvic health overall. But seat technology has changed, and you should get your sit bones measured. Is the first thing. Just go out, go to a local bike shop, have them measure your sit bones, and then get a seat that is wide enough for your sit bones. Most seats like sit in between women's sit bones just because of the shape of our hips.
Mhm.
So get the right seat, and then they actually make seats that don't have like the part where your like vulva is, so you don't have pressure there, and you're just sitting on your sit bones.
So it's almost like a banana like
Kind
shape.
of, it just like
Or,
has a hole. It looks
okay.
weird. It's just like this the seat where your butt goes, and then there's like a hole where, yeah,
Huh,
really.
interesting. Okay.
So there's some really nice seats out there now, but probably my number one tip is like get a seat that's wide enough for your sit bones so that you're sitting on your sit bones instead of like on your pubic bone.
I feel so validated.
Yes, you are not alone. And I think if I could like share one thing about biking, it'd be that like get the right seat for you, because I think also from a health perspective, it's really important for us.
Yeah, for sure. I have a lot of friends that are like, "Will you ever do a triathlon?" I'm like, "If you do the biking portion, then yes, because
Yeah.
I've done dual athlons. I can swim and I can run,
Yeah.
but I purposely skip out on the bike."
Yeah. So uncomfortable when you don't have the right seat.
Now, you said that it's mountain biking season, which obviously it's the season for a lot of activities that are outdoors right now. And I keep getting the question, and I've talked about this in previous podcasts before and even in my group, but people continuously ask about summertime hydration, summertime fueling, how to fuel different during this time of year. So, what are some things that people should consider when they're going out on the trails to make sure that they come back feeling pretty good about themselves and not feeling like they're going to pass out?
Yeah, this is so helpful. Bringing a ton of snacks. So I think it's like 200 to 300 calories an hour. So I actually just do like snack math. So if I think I'm going to be out on a ride for like 3 or 4 hours, I'm like, okay, I need like 1,000 calories or something like that. Um, the other calculation is like it's like 30 to 90 grams of carbohydrates an hour, but adding in some protein into that is going to be really helpful for us as women.
Mhm.
So do snack math and bring enough snacks, and then enough snacks for like in case your adventure is a couple hours longer than you need.
Snacks for your snacks.
Snacks for your snacks. And then hydration. There's also hydration math, but I am not as familiar with that. Bringing enough water is really helpful. I think we feel fine like during the activity. It's just like, do you have plans to like do anything else the rest of your day? If you want to like not just like be like stuck on your couch, like feeling awful at the end of your day, fueling during is going to be really helpful. And then if you had plans to do something like it's Saturday and you want to do something again on Sunday, if you fuel appropriately, you're going to recover quicker and have energy stores for that activity tomorrow.
Mhm. I always tell people too, if you get to the point where you can actively tell that you are starting to go down in your energy levels because of feeling either fatigued from hydration or from your food, then you've waited too long. Like and most of the time people, like when I go trail running with my friends and I'll say, "Do you guys want to stop for a snack?" They'll go, "Well, I'm not hungry yet." And I'm like, that's because you've got endorphins going. Like you need to
Yeah.
stop it. I'll set an alarm for every 40 to 60 minutes to make sure we eat something. So that's always
Yeah.
my tip is actually set an alarm and also set like goals for yourself with your hydration of make sure every hour you're taking down at least, 12 ounces of water. Like make that your goal to do. And if an hour goes by and you haven't, stop and drink it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you have to be kind of on it, checking the time, because those signals aren't there, because like what like our body is shunting blood away from our gut.
Right.
So like our body's like, hey, we're like doing something. Like, are we running from a tiger? I don't know. We don't need to be digesting right now. And so the hunger signals aren't there, but our blood sugar is still going to respond and we can bonk, which I've been there. I've had a lot of trail cries because I didn't eat enough and it's not fun.
Oh, it's the worst. And you're so angry afterwards. Like it's like hangry to a whole new level.
A whole new level. Not good for our relationships.
No. So what are some of your favorite snacks to take with you?
My favorite snacks. I love like the gummy chews. I think we have like the Pro Bar ones, pink lemonade right now. I love like the meat sticks, like jerky sticks.
Mhm.
I love those. And then I'll just bring like a sandwich sometimes. We're gonna do like a 5 or 6 hour ride this weekend, and I'm gonna bring definitely a sandwich and definitely some really bomb snacks because I'm gonna be hungry.
I never eat like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich except for when we go hiking and I do that purposely because when you're out it makes you so excited for that sandwich.
Good. It's so, so good.
Oh, and when it gets all like melty together, you're like, "Oh my God, I've waited all day for this thing." Oh,
Yeah.
it's so good. And then is there any particular type of hydration? Because I know someone will always ask, like, "Oh, what's your favorite electrolyte that you like to drink?" Is there anything specific that you
Yeah.
use?
Yeah, so for my hydration, I use Element. Um, yeah, I do. I like try and keep my water mostly water, though. But if I do need an electrolyte drink on the trail, I'll put something that's like Element, not something where I'm like trying to get my fuel from it. I try not to like have my hydration be my fuel. Not that it's bad to have carbohydrates in there because there are benefits to that, but I try not to make that
Those
like
aren't counting as your like
a
math
fueling drink.
snacks. Yeah.
Right. It's not part of my my snack math. Um, so yeah, element, but mostly just plain water is like what I want when I'm out there.
Yeah. I love it. One of the things that you also talk about is don't be afraid to call yourself an athlete. And
Hmm.
I know that I struggled with this when I first started really getting into my own training of where I would run 30 to 40 miles a week and people would be like, "Oh, so are you a runner?" And I go, "I run sometimes, but no, it's like we're scared because we hold these like hold it up at a pedestal." So,
Yeah.
what's your advice and why do you think that that's so important to like it's important to call yourself an athlete?
Yeah, I think I mean, one, if you're putting in that amount of work, like you need to treat yourself well. I think athletes, one of the things they do really well is they take really good care of their bodies. Like they're consistently fueling so that their body is prepared. They're prioritizing sleep, they're prioritizing their mental well-being. So it's a very holistic look. Whereas like, not that like general fitness isn't this, but sometimes it can just be like, this is something I do on the side. And like
It's a
I
60-minute
still
strength
like
training workout 2 to 3 times a week.
right. And I still like go out on the weekends and I feel like shit on Saturday mornings. So I think it's just like this identity and it's like this self-confidence thing. Like you're out there crushing 30 to 40 miles a week, like you're killing it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you're a badass and you should own that.
Yeah, I love it. And I love how you specified with being an athlete, it's not just about the workouts, it's not just about nutrition, it's about the mindset and the recovery. So, what are some important things that you have your athletes focus on outside of the workout portion?
Yeah, definitely having like a full recovery day, no matter who you are. I think you need at least one recovery day a week. Um, Fueling, are you eating before and after your workouts? I think I can be really guilty of this, of not like eating right after my workout, which is really important for us as women for recovery. And then, yeah, are you getting enough sleep? All of those things like hydration. So, are you doing the things so your body can repair and recover? Like the workout is great and it's so important, but most of the benefits of the workout don't even happen during the workout. It's
Exactly.
all of those like 23 hours after.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell people all the time, you're not going to get stronger during the workout. You're going to get stronger while your body recovers from that workout. So don't skip out on that part.
Let's skip that. Yeah. And then I also work with just like people like we love to do a lot of things. Like I love to hike and walk my dogs and like do all the fun activities. And a client and I recently had a conversation about like under recovering because like we love to do all of these things. And it's not that we're working at hard intensities all the time, but we're just always doing something and not giving our body time to rest. So just like evaluating if you're someone who loves to do a lot, just make sure you're also taking some rest time.
Be honest
And
with yourself. Just because you're not doing a structured workout, but you're still getting 20,000 steps in on your recovery day might
exactly.
be your sign that you need to reevaluate your recovery day.
100%. Exactly.
No, I know for like running, when it comes to mobility work, we're working on our hips all the time. We're working on IT band stuff. We're working on our calves and our ankles. Are there any particular mobility spots to really focus on and stretch when it comes to mountain biking that people often neglect? Well, I think that just stretching and mobility work gets overlooked anyways.
Oh,
But when you're first talking to someone and someone's like, "Oh man, I'm achy," are you able to go like, "Well, chances are you're sore here and you need to stretch here."
yeah, definitely. I think, very similar to running, like, hips, knees, ankles, all of that. Um, but mountain biking, just because of the position, we tend to be in this kind of like kyphotic, like bent over posture. That's just the nature of mountain biking. So opening up chest, shoulders, and upper back, like rib cage mobility is really helpful. And then a lot of people struggle with like lower back pain because you're just in this position for a lot of time. So it's part mobility, but also just like, can you be really strong in these positions that you're going to need to hold for like potentially hours at a time?
Is a lot of times set up too, where just their bike is set up inappropriately, maybe not like the right
Yeah,
height for their handlebars or their seat.
exactly. Yeah, that's definitely a big one. So if you are feeling really uncomfortable on your bike, like get a bike fit. It'll be like, you'll be so much happier.
And I'm just curious. The only bike company I know is Trek because we do have that here. But what
Nice.
is your favorite? If you're like, okay, you're a beginner, you're ready to start investing in your first bike, are there any particular brands that you recommend for people?
I mean, I ride a Santa Cruz. I wouldn't say that's a good starter brand. My best advice is if you're new to mountain biking, go and buy a used bike on Facebook Marketplace. And then Pink Bike is the other one. It's like specific to bikes. There are so many amazing used mountain bikes. And you can get an amazing bike that's been ridden for like a year for like half the price. So if you're still like, I'm not sure, I'm like still feeling this out, that would be my best recommendation because you're going to get a really nice bike where you're going to have fun and have like the support you need to ride the trails you're going to ride without it being like scary. Sometimes like entry level bikes just aren't enough for the terrain we're on. So buy a used bike is my best advice.
That's great advice for sure. And then I want to talk about high rocks here in just a second. So my last like mountain biking question is someone's just getting started. They're trying to figure out balance between it all. And we've talked about the importance for a rest day, but if you, and I know this is very generic and it depends, but just like on average, what would be like the best training cycle for the week? Like 2 days of mountain biking, 3 days of weightlifting, 1 day of yoga, whatever the case may be. In your opinion, what would that kind of structure look like?
Yeah. So for someone, I have a few athletes. For someone who's like training for like a race or an event, in season. So right now they're either at 2 to 3 days a week of strength training and then 3 to 4 days a week of riding. And the way we fit all that in, especially if you have like a lot of mileage race coming up, is we still have that one rest day. So you're chilling, not doing much. And then we have like your lifting days. And on top of your lifting days, I'll stack like a hard workout. So like, hey, we're doing squats today. And then we're also going to do an interval workout on that day. Okay. And then we'll have like long rides, they're on their own. And then all the other rides can be on their own day. So that's how we would fit like 7 workouts basically into a 6 day week, still having a rest day or a 7 day week. Sorry. How many weeks are how many days are in the week?
7 day, 1 week. I think I know what you mean. I got
Yeah.
you.
So that would be that. And then for someone who's more like, hey, I'm just a leisure athlete, I am not competing in anything in season, they're probably doing again like 2 to 3 days a week of strength. And then I structure their workouts of like have some hard rides, have some easy rides just to like balance yourself out across the week. But a lot of people in season are switching to more like 2 days a week because they just want more energy for all the fun stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when you
Yeah.
say in season, does that mean like right now is training season and then the races are normally in the fall, or like
Yeah.
is race season now?
Race season, yeah, race season, like, I mean, out here somehow it goes like throughout the year. But race season started for some of my athletes like in April. So and then some people are training for like a specific event in like September. So in season is I use it loosely as like, are we racing? Are we just like in that really fun play time where I'm like, I want to just ride a lot and like I don't want to spend too much time inside right now.
Gotcha. And
Yeah.
then when it kind of like again, just trying to learn.
Yes.
I'm assuming there's like short distance and long distance. I know with like ultra marathons, there's the 100-mile races. What's kind of like the cream of the crop when it comes to mountain biking?
Yeah, so you have like your kind of local series, which will be anywhere from like 10 to 30 miles. Would be kind of like every weekend there's a race in a different area. And then here in Bend, we have 2 races that are really popular. One is a 100-mile race that's the end of this month, and then there's a 50-mile at the end. And then I have a few clients who are doing like ultra bike packing trips where they're riding for like 2 to 500 miles
Oh, wow.
over a few days. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Have you been keeping up at all with like did you watch the Tour de France?
No, I don't.
No, I don't either. But one of my girlfriends was just watching it for the first time. So she was like filling us in on how everything is done. And it's very, very fascinating when you actually learn the process of it all. You're like, oh, I just thought you just go and you bike until you get to the finish line. I didn't realize how like tailored out and much of a teamwork project it is.
Yeah, road cycling is super interesting in how all of that works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I
insane.
mean, some cross country mountain biking too. Yeah.
I can only
Mhm.
imagine. Do you have any bucket list events that you want to do?
I want to do, I think I'm going to do it this year, this 50-mile Ring of Fire ride. So it's 50 miles mountain biking in the mountains here. And then, yeah, I
Isn't
mean,
there
my
one in
goal,
Iceland too that's called like the Ring of Fire? What's
probably actually, yeah.
I don't know if it's covering a fire. It's covering it's a ride around the entire like country.
Oh, yeah, I mean, probably is that. Yeah. And then I just want to ride like as many trails as I can. So even if it's like, oh, I don't know if this is going to be cool. Yeah. Just ride as many trails as I can and see where I go.
Sometimes the smallest trails are the ones that are least talked about are the best and the most fun.
Totally. Yeah. Just
That's cool.
explore.
Now, tell me a little bit about High Rocks. I talked to Mallory a little bit about it at the end of our talk, and now it's about the end of our talk now. But this is really just starting to grow in popularity, and so I'm a little familiar with it, but I know probably a lot of listeners, it's probably something brand new. So, what is High Rocks, and what made you decide to jump into it this year?
Yeah. So High Rocks is a fitness kind of competition where you combine running with some sort of, I would say mostly strength exercise. So it'd be like it's 8 sort of strength movements and then 8 1 kilometer runs spread out. I would say like what they're trying to market to, which is kind of hot right now, is the hybrid athlete. So
It's
people
definitely
who are
like the
willing,
CrossFitter space right now, I feel like.
yeah. Yeah, it's like kind of the response to CrossFit where CrossFit has some like very technical moves. This is like very, I think, approachable. Anyone can do it. And yeah, so big cardio component, big strength component, and you just do it as fast as you can.
You just they say go and you just go.
Then you just
I guess I didn't
go.
realize that every single one it's always an 8 kilometer trek.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, or like a kilometer track. Yeah. So yeah, you just do a
So
lap.
when you're doing
Just
it with a team, are you doing like 4 kilometers or do you guys do the whole 8 kilometers together?
I actually don't know. I'm assuming we just run together and then we split the strength
Okay.
piece. Yeah.
Oh, see, I don't, that would drive me crazy because then if like my partner was, I'm so competitive that if like I think I could go faster than her at the thing,
Yeah.
I would want to do that, but then I'd also feel guilty of her having to do something and me just sitting there watching.
Yeah, totally. I know. I'm curious. We got to do some practice runs to see how it all works out and like who has like I imagine she'll be stronger at some things and I'll be stronger at some things so we
Sure.
can split well.
Is there
Yeah.
anything specific that you've got to work into your current training to get ready for that? Or is it just pretty much like I'm already hyped
Yeah.
enough and I'm ready for it?
I think I'm gonna have to run some. I think aerobically I'm like pretty ready, but I will just get some running miles in. So
Yeah.
I have time.
Yeah. Is it on a trail?
No, I think it's on like a track or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
Okay. I had this like I almost had it as like a Spartan race, but instead of like the Spartan events, more like CrossFit style-y
it
strength
looks it
event.
looks like where you would host a CrossFit event where you have like
Okay.
everyone, like the stations are right there and there's like spectators. I'm not sure what the run looks like, but I'm imagining you like run around whatever's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna have to definitely keep up with you guys because y'all will help me decide if it's something that I want to do.
Yeah, it just
Uh,
sounds fun.
yeah, I'll live through you guys first, and then I'll see if there's something over here on the southeast.
Sweet.
Well, Casey, I know that we're coming up on time, but where can people learn more about you, find out more about your training? Like I mentioned, I actually have quite a few Fit Women's Weekly Live members who are mountain bikers. So if they're curious to find some specific training advice, where can they get that?
Yeah, so best way I share a lot of information on my Instagram, KCM Westbrook. That's the best way to connect with me.
I love it. And are you taking on one-on-one clients right now?
Yes, I am. Mhm.
Awesome. And do you train people for not only when they're in season, but off season?
Yeah, so I train people throughout the year. It's like okay, we're in season, and then how do we prioritize? What do we prioritize in our off season so we're ready to rock and roll when the season hits?
I love it. And then my very last question is at the very beginning of this podcast, I did not forget this. You mentioned that you had some specific strength training goals for yourself. And
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what is one of them?
Yeah, so my goals are I want to hit a 300-pound deadlift, 200-pound back squat, and a 160-pound bench press.
Love it.
So I'm on my way. Yeah.
Are you pretty close? You getting there?
I am, I think I did 185 for 3 for back squat. So I probably
Oh,
just need to
yeah.
do like a one rep max test. And I think I have a little ways to go for deadlift and bench. I'm probably at like 120. So I
Oh,
got a little
you
ways
got
to
this. You
go.
got
I'm
it.
good by the end of the year though.
Awesome. Well, just make sure to share because I want to be able to see.
Yeah, it will.
All right. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Thanks, Kendall.
So, what'd you think? If you are a big fan of the episode, hopefully you are, make sure that you hit the like video, make sure that you're subscribed. And if you're watching that video being like, man, I wish I could push myself. Man, I wish that my workouts weren't so boring. Man, I wish that I could hit some new goals in the gym. Well, I have a solution for you. Go to fitwomensweekly.com. You can learn more about my program, Fit Women's Weekly Live, where every day I go live with new workouts designed to help you break out of your workout rut, take you to the next level of your fitness, and make sure that you're also having a good time. You're challenging your body in new ways and walking away going, man, I just did that. And so that actually keeps you motivated to come back workout after workout, which is going to obviously help you stay consistent. Consistency is what drives results. So head over there. I'll make sure to put all the links down in the show notes. Also, go check out Casey. Her Instagram is down below as well, and you can learn more about her training when it comes to adventure women.